This is Ed Hannan at the SMPS Build Business 2012 Conference in San Francisco. I'm here with Kevin Hebblethwaite, the president of Hebblethwaite LLC in Noonan, Georgia. Kevin is the incoming president, I guess he now is the president of SMPS for the 2012-2013 year. Kevin, welcome.
Thank you very much. That gavel's getting pretty heavy already.
So Kevin, one of the things that is sort of the thought that people have is when they come in is like, what are the goals and ambitions that you have as incoming president that you'll try to accomplish in a year that seems long now, but I think a year from now is going to seem like it went by really quick?
It will. It always goes by very quickly, and that's part of the reason we try and take a look at the annual planning process as, hey, which trains are moving fast, which ones need to be encouraged to move faster, which ones have already left the station, so on and so forth. And there's several things we think that are pretty important right now. One is to really think about how to reinvigorate the value of membership, and that's on multiple layers, of course. But what is it really that people get out of membership in SMPS? And as we heard today at the conference, we're in the middle of a process of scanning the membership and getting some primary research back from that audience. And we're doing the qualitative. We just did the qualitative part with focus groups and meetings and interviews, and we got a big survey coming out. And so we'll be looking to get a very positive response rate to help get a little further into defining some of these things about what makes membership really valuable for individuals, for their career paths, certainly for the firms that sponsor those memberships, and then advancing the industry as a whole. Another thing that I'm very excited about is finding ways to reach out to the younger generations who aren't members yet and aren't even in the industry yet, specifically who are still in a program of study, and helping augment their study with marketing, business savviness, those things that everybody says, yeah, I never really got much of that. I'm not saying that nobody ever got it, but generally speaking, I believe SMPS can support those programs of study that are in existence and say, look, here's a little bit of the real world. You will have to generate clients and projects, relationships that deliver those projects, and you will have to keep those projects profitable if you want the firm to stay in business. A little bit of HR. How do you find the next great designer? How do you find the next great engineer? And how do you find the construction manager with the right experience to do the work? Well, these are all things that you don't really do when you're doing a studio all night long. So I'm really excited about that. We have a lot of internal kinds of operational things with SMPS that we can spend some time focusing on. We're a growing organization, and anytime you're growing, you got to sort of figure out how to put some oil in the right places, and I'd like to see us do that with things like information that we maintain for our members, perhaps streamlining some of the processes that chapters do the same way every place, every time, and just kind of avoid some duplication kind of thing. So those are a few that I'm pretty excited about.
To talk a little bit about the sort of methodology behind the survey, in terms of how that's sort of how that whole process is going to unfold.
Well, back in 2005, we did a similar kind of exercise. It was even more intense because the outcome was to really put in place a long-term vision that would be the undergirdings of a long-term strategic plan. And that still exists. But we realized it had been almost 10 years since we really dug through that and said, well, a lot has happened. I mean, good grief, 2008, 9, and those awful years, the questions are a little bit different now. And the industry's a little bit different now. So, all right, it's time to invest again. We actually brought the same outside resource back to help us with that. That was a wonderful decision. And it started off with that qualitative approach you might expect. Some focus groups were done around the country, 2 or 3 of those. Specific interviews with the incoming chapter presidents, those feet-on-the-street leaders in our society. And then some one-on-one interviews. I believe it was 30 to 40, not insignificant. That was the first part, and then, of course, the quantitative will be more of a traditional survey of the membership. I think we hit 30% response rate 2005, and I threw out 50% just to see what people could do, but anything over 30 would certainly be significant again.
And what will you do with the results? Once the results come back, what happens then?
That'll be over the next couple of months. I believe they said it's coming out the Monday after the conference. And so generally we'll be looking at, the rest of July, August, September as sort of the absorption part of that as the results start to come back in. From preliminary discussions we've seen, we already kind of feel like we're heading down the right pathway. I think what it'll do, though, is will allow us to get more specific, decide how soon to aim for some of the tactical parts of it, and then, like you would do with any plan, sort of figure out, well, okay, this part of it should happen this year, and then we'll target next year when Brad Thurman's president, and then kind of keep that sort of structured out, just refined a little more than it is right now.
Excellent. And then the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is, I know this doesn't directly fall under your sort of purview, but the SMPS Foundation stuff with the book versus the white papers that they've done in the past. We talked about that a little bit the other day at lunch.
Sure. Just
maybe talk a little bit more about what's going to happen there and what the sort of process and the outcome will be of that.
Well, as most people are aware, the white papers would take multiple topics that were batted around and decided, hey, those are good for this year. Well, this year, this question of what really is the future of business development was just this huge overarching kind of question. And you certainly could take it different directions, but the thought was, well, let's just dive into that. Things are so different now with the recession having come through. And so it was an effort to say, let's just do one comprehensive piece. And in similar fashion to that membership scan, let's treat it like a research project and get a handful of writers and editors to focus on subtopics. And so it was just kind of a different approach to the research that goes on every year. And this year was just slightly different. Doesn't mean that white papers will never be done ever again. Doesn't mean that we won't write a book next year. Those are all questions to be discussed.
It's just for the here and now. The book is the way we're going to go.
Yeah.
And then just the last question, and thanks so much for your time, but the last question is, you talked a little bit about yesterday about the relationship between national and then sort of the local and the regionals. And I think that came up at the retreat you guys had. Where do you sort of see that relationship now, and what would be sort of the ideal relationship, whether or not it already exists?
Well, first and foremost, we support the chapters. I mean, that's where members join. It's where members live, and it's where members work. And so there's always that local affiliation that drives the majority of the SMPS relationship for a member. The regionals that you mentioned, they kind of grew up on their own. I mean, these are not the officially sanctioned districts of SMPS kind of thing. They're chapters that have come together, decided to combine resources and have programming, and in some cases very extensive programming. They're doing very well. And in terms of what does the national organization do to support all of that, anything that's consistent among all of them, especially things like domains of practice and knowledge and research, well, that's what national's going to be doing. As I mentioned earlier, I would love to see us kind of increase some of the operational things that we can help assist chapters with, to the extent that it's those things that happen the same way every single place. And I would hope that the chapters themselves would say, please help us with this, because it's the same everywhere, and we can support that way. That lets them focus on membership development, the content and education that is specific to their members in the way that they need to.
Excellent. Kevin, thank you for your time, and best of luck in the coming year.
Hey, thanks for everybody's attendance here, and we'll see you in Orlando.